think there are options across the league. The Hawks lost to the Hornets. That would be an option. The Wizards defense, we don't need to get into it, but it was as disappointing as advertised. Houston was a good one, I thought, by Sam. The Timberwolves, who have talked a big talk, right? This huge monster season that they're going to have coming up, with a lot of money on the line for a lot of guys and future in Minnesota on the line, went to Toronto, and Raptors were probably more impressive on the impressive side that we could have used, but they only scored 94 points. I read John Krasinski, who we'll give higher than a B- on his night one gamer, but the quotes were all about how, the preseason was great, but then we got to the regular season. And basically, it seemed like they were saying we started caring about stats. And Anthony Edwards, the ball got really sticky, and it was a bunch of isolations. And there's just a lot of agendas in Minnesota this year, right? And they just didn't look good in night one and lost to the Raptors. So that would be, I think, a night one disappointment. How about the Grizzlies at home? I am worried about Memphis. They lose to the Pelicans at home. The injuries, right? Steven Adams going out for the year now. I don't know how that season's going to go. Some people picking them very high in the West, right? They were the 2 seed last year. I don't know. It's going to be tough for them.
Steven Adams is really important for them.
Yeah.
Like not even necessarily just because of the offensive rebounding and the sound team defense and all of that, but also because the thing with Jaren Jackson Jr. and the problem that he had with FIBA when he wasn't nearly as effective is that when he plays the 5, he's just not as good defensively. He's way more reckless. He fouls way more. And when he's next to Steven Adams, he's a lot more disciplined and he's way better. And 5 fouls last night for Jaren Jackson Jr. He was able to play a lot of minutes. He wasn't necessarily in foul trouble or anything like that, but that is the thing that I'm monitoring. One of the huge reasons why they were a 2 seed last year. And on top of this, by the way, they're missing Ja for the first quarter of the season. But one of the big reasons why Jaren Jackson Jr. had such a fabulous defensive season last year was because he was on the floor. One of the big reasons why Memphis was able to climb to number 2 was because they were so good defensively because of Jaren Jackson's production. And I'm not worried about him becoming a bad defender, but if he's not one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in the league, he can't stay on the floor during important moments. That's really going to hurt them, especially when they don't have the backdrop of Ja Morant being there. I don't think they're going to be bad or anything. I could see them not having home court in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, which, you get into that area you're talking about, potentially not having a home court in the first round because of how bunched the West is expected to be in the parity. Then you are in danger of missing the playoffs, once you're in that muddled mix. And, look, they start Xavier Tillman and Zaire Williams last night. Zaire Williams was in the G League last year. He's kind of been, he had a disappointing season. We'll see. Maybe he pops. But the fact that you start Xavier Tillman and Zaire Williams, then you look at who came off the bench for them last night: Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard misses all 5 of his threes. Derrick Rose, 3 of 11. We'll see. I mean, I know he had kind of a little resurgence in New York, but also by the end looked a little bit older too. Depth was so big for them, right? And the depth is just eroded, not through injury. Yes, Brandon Clark, Steven Adams, suspension right now, Ja Morant, but also just Tyus Jones gone, DeAnthony Melton gone. The playoff teams that I know you covered the Memphis series. This is not as deep or proven a team. Maybe some of these guys make a step up and make by midseason. We're saying, David Roddy, but it seems thin there, much thinner than it has.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's also what has been the main criticism of the Grizzlies basically for the past 2 or 3 years since they've become a really, really good, formidable, well-coached threat in the West. It's that they can bog down in the half court offensively. They're a really good defensive team. They're insanely well-coached. If they get stops and they get out on the run, they're dynamic in transition. But once they get into their half court, they can bog down. They're not bad, but if they're going up against a really good, really staunch, really disciplined half-court defense, they can struggle offensively. And the way that they often end up surviving is with offensive rebounds. That's what holds them up. They take a ton of floaters. They have guys who take a ton of floaters, and floaters are also really offensive reboundable. And they have Steven Adams, who's the best offensive rebounder of his generation. And they have Brandon Clark, who is a really energetic rebounder also. And they get tons of offensive rebounds. Steven Adams is a one-man offensive rebounding team. You have him on the floor, you will be one of the best, if not the best, offensive rebounding teams in the league, period. Like, he's that good. Him and Mitchell Robinson are the only two dudes in the league who I would say that about. You have those guys on the floor, you will be awesome at offensive rebounding, period. And by the way, it's going to help your transition defense too, because those guys are so good at offensive rebounding that other teams have to send multiple guys at them to try to keep them off the board, which means that they're running in the opposite direction of running in transition. So it's going to help you there too. I worry about the half-court offense bogging down. Even once Ja gets back, I worry about the half-court offense bogging down. And they're going to be good. And Taylor Jenkins is such a good coach, and there's still a lot of talent there. Desmond Bane is awesome and will probably continue to get better. But, like, I see a world where that team slides to 5, 6, 7 in the West. And once you're there, it's like, you know, it's
A few
difficult
more
to see.
games
Like,
in your 8, 9, 10. You know,
right. I don't think they're as good as Denver. I don't think they're as good as Phoenix. I don't think they're as good as the Lakers. So
Warriors, Kings,
I don't think they're as good as the Kings.
Clippers. Yeah. If they stay healthy, you can name a lot of teams. Yeah, no, I agree. And you mentioned I worry about the longevity of Steven Adams' career. I mean, he just plays so physical. I mean, you were around early in his career. So many ankle sprains, so many elbows to the face, the migraine headaches he used to get. He's just such a physical style. And now the fact that he tried to rehab a knee injury, it didn't work. Now he's getting, it sounds like ACL surgery. He just always seemed like a guy who by 31, 32 is just kind of beaten down because of the way he has to play.
I mean, I feel like, I know the guy, and I always think of him as so much older than he is. He's like 30. Like, he's not old, 29 maybe. Like, he seems like he's like Udonis Haslem at this point, but he's not
it's
old.
A little bit like the guy I cover, Kevon Looney's 27, and you're like, so he just feels like a 34-year-old, like, wily vet. And it's the same with Steven Adams. 100%. It's just been around so long, because been a playoff relevant, both of them, for a long time in big games, and also like style of play, personality, all of it mixed in. But yeah, you're right. But guys age differently, and the type of style you play can age you differently.